Welcome to StickMan Explains.
Everyone has heard the slogan that recycling saves the planet. And when we throw a plastic bottle into a recycling bin, we feel like we're contributing to solving environmental pollution problems. However, recycling is not what it's made out to be. Humanity produces over 9.2 billion tons of plastic. But in reality, only about 9% of plastic waste is recycled. The rest ends up in landfills, is incinerated, or is scattered in the environment as litter and microplastics. Why is this happening? It's very simple. Recycling truly remains one of the key elements of a circular economy, where resources are reused. Theoretically, recycling paper saves forests, and recycled plastic reduces the amount of waste around us. But in practice, the recycling industry has faced serious problems. The cost of virgin raw materials has fallen, sorting and processing costs are rising, and much of what we send for recycling actually never gets a second life. In this material, I will briefly explain why the modern recycling system doesn't work as effectively as we'd like, and how to rethink approaches to waste management. To understand the recycling crisis, it's important to see the scale of the plastic waste problem. More than 400 million tons of new plastic are produced worldwide every year. From packaging and single-use tableware to technical parts and cars. In recent decades, plastic consumption has increased several times, and along with it, mountains of waste are growing. And this flow is mostly directed not to recycling, but to landfills or directly into nature. Today, humanity recycles only about 9% of plastic waste. Another 19% is incinerated in waste-to-energy plants, turning into greenhouse gas and toxic emissions. Approximately half is simply landfilled, and the remaining 22% completely escapes official collection systems. The latter means that millions of tons of plastic end up in uncontrolled dumps, in rivers and oceans, or are incinerated illicitly every year. The accumulated plastic in the environment has already reached astronomical scales. Tens of millions of tons float in seas and oceans, and even more lies in soils and rivers. According to forecasts, in 30 years, plastic waste volumes could triple compared to current levels. Such a pace of waste accumulation is clearly outstripping the capabilities of recycling systems. It's not enough to just throw everything into a container and believe that someone will pick it up and environmentally recycle it. The current recycling model doesn't work that way. Let me explain in more detail why only a small fraction of waste gets a second life and what exactly prevents this fraction from increasing. Firstly, not all plastics are created equal. There are thermoplastic polymers that can be remelted, for example, PET bottles, and there are thermosetting plastics that cannot be remelted at all. Many types of packaging consist of combined materials. For example, thin plastic film on a paper bag or laminates of plastic and foil layers. Such multi-layer and composite waste is virtually impossible to separate into pure fractions. Therefore, it almost always goes to the landfill. Even among pure plastics, only certain types have established technologies and a recycling market. This is mainly PET bottles. Plastics such as PVC, polystyrene, and polypropylene are often not accepted for recycling due to a lack of technology or economic viability. Secondly, sorting waste is a difficult task for both people and machines. The popular single-stream scheme is when all recyclables are collected in one container. Convenient for the public, but leads to high contamination of recyclables. Mixed collection greatly reduces material quality. For example, a small impurity of PVC among PET flakes during melting can lead to the formation of benzene, a dangerous carcinogen. Paradoxically, a significant portion of the waste that we diligently sort ends up in landfills due to technological limitations and material contamination. Thirdly, recycling is not just about environmental protection, but also about business. For this whole process to work, buyers for secondary raw materials and funds for collection and processing are needed. Currently, the market value of recycled materials is very low, undermining the financial stability of the industry. In recent years, prices for glass and some plastics have fallen to an all-time low, so sales do not cover the costs of their collection and processing. To recycle the gigantic 460 million tons of plastic produced annually, investments of about 100 billion are needed. And this is only operating costs for mechanical recycling, not to mention the construction of new plants. And finally, the most common method, mechanical recycling, although cheaper than alternatives, cannot cope with all types of plastic. Many products have impurities that prevent their reuse. Plastic also has a durability limit. Most thermoplastics can only withstand a few melting cycles, after which their properties degrade. There is an alternative, chemical recycling. That is, breaking down polymers into molecules from which new materials can be synthesized. I have already talked about this in great detail on the channel. For those interested, I invite you to watch. I will not repeat myself. However, I will mention another hidden threat that has not been thought about for a long time. This is the toxicity of plastic recycling. The fact is that plastics contain various additives: stabilizers, plasticizers, dyes, flame retardants. Many of them are toxic. During reprocessing, these chemicals do not disappear. Moreover, each cycle of melting, grinding, or mixing can lead to the appearance of new dangerous compounds. Secondary plastic often contains increased concentrations of harmful substances. In a recent study, more than 80 different chemical compounds were found in recycled plastic granules, including pesticides, pharmaceutical preparations, and industrial chemicals. In other words, plastic, after going through a recycling cycle, can become even dirtier than the original product. In addition, the recycling process itself creates fine pollutants. Microplastic particles are formed. By the way, there is also a video about them on the channel. During industrial grinding and remelting, there are also many of them. If filtration is insufficient, these microparticles eventually end up in rivers and seas. Ironically, in trying to fight waste, we create even more pollution. And another aspect of the recycling problem is social and geographical. Rich countries often report high percentages of waste collected for recycling, but often it goes abroad to poorer regions. For decades, developed economies exported tons of plastic waste to Asia, Africa, and even to us, hoping that it would be magically recycled there. A significant portion of this imported waste ends up in illegal dumps or in open-burning incinerators, polluting the environment of the recipient countries. For example, China accepted about half of the world's plastic waste until 2018. When China introduced a ban on waste imports, the global recycling system experienced a serious shock. So, if traditional recycling is not living up to expectations, what's next? We should not give up on recycling altogether, but there are approaches that should be changed. Firstly, it's the priority of reduction and reuse. The classic hierarchy says reduce, reuse, and recycle. Today, it's time to especially emphasize the first two Rs. The most effective waste is the waste that has not been created. This means rethinking the design of goods and packaging. Secondly, design focused on recycling and safety. Manufacturers should change their approach to creating goods. Today, many products are designed with an emphasis only on convenience and marketing, without thinking about their afterlife. We need a design for recycling philosophy, where packaging or goods are designed so that they can be easily disassembled into homogeneous materials and recycled. Thirdly, innovative technologies and materials. Recently, new types of materials, biodegradable bioplastics, have been developed, and research is also being conducted on biological recycling. For example, bacteria and enzymes capable of eating polymers and breaking them down into simple non-toxic compounds are being found. There have been successes with enzymatic recycling of PET plastic. In laboratory conditions, it is broken down into monomers to be synthesized again as new. These technologies are still very far from mass use, but they open the way to a possible revolution in recycling. Overall, recycling remains an important link, but it cannot be the only foundation, as the current recycling system is far from ideal. Recycling works effectively for some materials and should be continued and improved. And humanity's task is to make the word waste disappear from our vocabulary altogether. And future generations will live in a world where everything matters and no material is wasted. This sounds ambitious enough, but in my opinion, it is entirely achievable. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel.